So we were saying, in all of this COVID thing, human beings were never really meant to be caged. We like to roam free, but with the restrictions in COVID, lots of nerves have been frayed, lots of people are rebelling, and who better to tell us how to deal with those stresses than my guest, who is a certified and registered psychotherapist practicing in one of the largest institutions in the UK, Karen Mann. Karen, thanks so much for agreeing to be my guest, because people would not know all of the ramifications of this thing, because you're leaving soon and we had to organize this around your departure. But thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here, and I hope that I can give you some tips.
I think so. My little discussions with you reveal so much. First of all, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Yes, well, I love St. Lucia. I've been coming here for 27 years. The first time I came, I visited a hotel and I said to my family, I'm going to work here. And they said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, let's see. I'll give a talk and see if anyone is interested. Everyone was interested. This was This was called the Body Holiday, which is now, it was then called Les Ball. And everybody who heard the talk wanted to book in, which was just amazing, because they could then relax and really enjoy everything that was to offer. You know, kind of in London, unfortunately, the sessions are great, but then they go out into the dreary old traffic and it's dark and it's not very pleasant. So to have this, it was just absolutely wonderful. And then I started introducing myself to the local people and seeing them. And so I had this combination, which I just, I love being with the local people, but I've found that it's been very helpful. The only thing was that in the beginning, people weren't quite sure what I was doing, and they were a little bit suspicious and a little bit nervous, actually. And even coming in, when I arrived, I went through the customs and it said purpose of visit and it said psychotherapist. And he went, oh, and 5 of them were like really quite worried, and they said, you're a mind reader. And I said, no, I'm not a mind reader. I listen to people's problems and I try to help them. And he said to me, well, we don't do that. we don't talk about our problems.
No, it's a Caribbean thing. Yes. The problems are your own.
Yes, but particularly, actually, women will talk about it more than men.
Yeah.
But particularly men, we don't do that. But then they started to see that I had success, and they absolutely, welcomed it. From then I started to get waiting lists. And the 3 things that stop you going through with your emotions, 3 emotions, that make blocks in your body. There's 3, if you can guess what they are. It's guilt, anger, and lack of forgiveness. They're the 3 big blocks. And once you can process those and work through those, actually my job's quite easy, because I'm a quick fix. I'm not sort of 20 years, you've got to keep seeing me. I can do it very quickly once I clear those blocks. But what's happening now, unfortunately, with the pandemic, is I'll try and give you an example of when you're a baby, you're a blank page. So anything that you hear, you just believe as gospel, because you have nothing to compare against. So if your parents or your caretakers say, stupid boy, you will believe it. And then you will hear from somebody else, stupid idiot, and you believe it more. Then the school teacher might say, oh, you're stupid. So you firmly believe it, because in a way you've been hypnotized and it's going into your subconscious. But there are ways of changing these old belief systems. And I think it's the same with the pandemic, that people are hearing things again and again. And one thing in particular, which just worries me so much, everyone is anxious. We're all in the same boat. And the problem is, though, that it's very comforting to blame. So what happens is they were blaming the government, and then they shifted a bit to these memes and these theories that are not always true, but they're hearing the theories again and again and again. So they're believing it more. The more they hear it, the more they believe it.
Would you also say, Karen, that the negative philosophy is promulgated far more often than is the positive? We don't hear from governments, I'm not talking this government, generally, we don't hear from the authorities as often about how good the vaccine is, about how the tests that are being done. But almost on an hourly basis, there is some new person telling you all about the guinea pig that you are for this vaccine.
Yes, and unfortunately, a bigger problem, more than the actual pandemic, is fear. Fear is contagious, more contagious than the actual pandemic. And what happens is, one person will hear this, and at one time you would get a meme, and it would be from, some doctor or something, and you'd believe it. Now you're getting it from all these strange people, and it's appearing in your WhatsApp, and it's from your aunt, and it's from your friend, and it's from all these different people, and people are just, they're totally believing in it. And so they then tell the story. They tell the horror story to their friend. They phone their friend, or they WhatsApp their friend. They pass it on, one to another, to another, to another. And this is comforting, the blame. They feel a little bit better, because we have something called fight or flight. And so this kind of buys into this theory. So they pass on these theories, and everyone is frightened. And then not only that, the next person who hears it is even more afraid, because it's been exaggerated a bit. Do you remember? It used to be called Chinese whispers. Mm-hmm. And so the actual story that started, is actually not the one that you hear in the end. Or you might get maybe a series of 6 doctors speaking. Now, these doctors have got white coats on. They may even have a stethoscope. Doesn't mean they're real. And a child could look at that, and so the parents need to say to the children, it's not always real. Just remember, what you're seeing isn't real. The doctors are working very, very hard, on this. And, just kind of listen also. It's very important with children, because your lovely niece approached me about this. She said about the children. Right. And the most important thing is to find out their understanding, what they understand about it. So find out what they're watching, find out if they're seeing these memes and these videos that are coming through. And so you get a grasp of their understanding, and say to them, do you have questions? What do you want to ask me? And be very, very calm and talk to the children and explain to them the doctors are doing their best. You can't control everything. It's not possible. But what you can control is your home. And your environment. So if you can ensure your children that you're going to wear a mask, you're going to wash your hands, you're going to distance, and you're under control in your home, that's also quite soothing. That, because as I say, everyone has anxiety, everyone is scared about loss of control, and there are things that you can do with your mind. And what happens with children, unfortunately, it's almost like a little voice in their head that what will happen to grandparents, what's going to happen, this and that. And so if you get, depending on the age of the child, but if you could say to the child, just think of that little voice as Mr. Bossy, and you're going to change that perception of Mr. Bossy, and just keep reassuring them, keep talking to them, understand what's going on in the head. It's very important.
So Karen, we've heard that school is about to recommence very shortly.
Yes.
I'm not sure it's a full scale, or I think even the preschools are opening.
Yes.
What message would you have for teachers who have themselves been subject to all of that strain and anxiety over the past few months, and they now have to return to the classroom?
Yes.
what's the message for those teachers?
Well, one thing they can do, they're going to feel wobbly, especially at the beginning. You know, everyone's been at home and then suddenly they're back and no one is sure. This is the problem again with the memes. Nobody really knows. So if everybody, the teachers, the children, the parents, make a list of your support group, that can be your family, it can be your friends, it can be your doctor, it can be people that you come across, your colleagues who you trust. Make a list and really concentrate that this is your support group, and the teacher can put it on their fridge, on a note on the fridge, so they can look at it, and they can tell the children as well to have these lists at hand that they can look at and know that they're loved and that they're cared for, and so when they wobble they can have this kind of reassurance. Do not allow them, when they come back from school, watch again what they're watching. If they're watching the rolling news, which is repeated, as you know, a child will not know that it hasn't happened again and again. So if you take 9/11, when the aeroplanes went into the buildings, if a child saw that, they would think that happened 10 times because they've come back from school, they're watching the news, they see it again and again. So you have to keep an eye on them, not only while they're there, but when they come home too. It's there's a lot of tools really that you can use like that. But we were talking about the vaccine earlier, and one thing children are worried about, so obviously everyone has to work if they can. So some children have been looked after their grandparents and some are not, they're alone. So the grandparents actually, they're being asked, or they were before they went back, Google, how do I do that? They didn't know actually how to do it. So there was that, that going on.
The parents, what about them? They would like the children to be back at school, but there also must be some anxiety about the children going to school because everybody thinks their child is the only safe child and every other child is a possible spreader. So how do you deal with that?
Well, you have to look out for symptoms as well with the children. One symptom is anger. If they're suddenly angry or throwing a tantrum, that's how they're processing it. So you have to tell them it's okay to be scared, it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be scared, it's okay to have all of these emotions. However, they do have to keep safe, and the parents have to tell the children, I will help you, and that thoughts affect how they feel. So if the child is having a thought and they've seen these memes, these videos, they have to understand that thoughts affect your mind, they affect your body, and you can change it. If you think about blushing, if someone's embarrassed, they actually change their physiology. So that's how powerful a thought is. So the children need to know that you can change how you're thinking. So if a bad thought comes in their mind and they're scared, just change it. We used to have a game, I don't know if you had it here, called Pac-Man. And it used to go like this.
Yes. The video game.
Yes. So if you tell the child, imagine Pac-Man is eating those words or is eating those thoughts, and change those thoughts. The thing is, though, you're saying they're being scared. I can't say this is a psychological problem, it doesn't exist, because it's real. That's the difference. So you have to make it real and make sure that they keep the protocols as well. And one thing that I noticed, I was actually not behaving well myself in the supermarket. I lost it because I was watching the protocol, and children need to know that you're protecting them and you don't want to kill their grandparents. So in the supermarket there was a circle on the floor that said distance on the checkout. However, inside the store there was no distancing. And the other thing that I noticed is that there's masks are being worn under their chin like a beard. Now this does not help at all. So we really have to get them to, if they say they're scared, say, yes, but we are going to do this. We're going to wash our hands. We're going to wear the mask. We're going to keep our distance in the supermarket or wherever it is, and in school. You keep the distance, and just again and again until they can process it properly. But a lot of fear, and this is adults and children, in the beginning, like last year, even actually with my own family, they were so worried in the beginning, and they said, I can't do this, I can't stay in, I can't. But what happens is, once they process it, which takes time, they accept it, then they can go forward. So when they go back to school, they will have these wobbly feelings in the beginning. However, once they process it, and everyone can help them feel safe, and do not use painted words. There's a term in psychology which is called a painted word, and unfortunately death is one of these words, and we don't mean to say it, but we're chatting away between ourselves and saying these words that the children are picking up. So just watch your language and the words that you use, and try not to use those words if you possibly can.
Well, let's look at a critical segment of our society, our police force.
Right.
These are people who carry firearms, whose job involves the use of firearms.
Yes.
Whose job involves not just taking care of criminal activity anymore. It's now included in that is making sure everyone observes protocols, observes this, and they're now put in a position of conflict with regular citizens that they ordinarily would not have had contact with. And these people are seeing almost the criminalization of wearing masks, of not being too close to somebody else. Those police officers are working morning, noon, and night. Very long hours under very taxing circumstances. What's your message for them?
For the police force?
Yeah.
Well, they have to show by example. That's the only way they can do it. And that is, unfortunately, and I know that it's almost claustrophobic with a mask and you can inhale little fibres and all this, but to really, really don't let anyone see you with the mask under your chin. You just have to keep alert at all times and keep reassuring people. So you're giving two messages. You're giving one, I am doing the protocol, but on the other hand, I am protecting you. I will help you. Come to me. They can be on the support group that you've got. The teachers have got all the people, the family, the friends, whoever it is. Stick the police on there. Stick the doctors on there. There's a wonderful doctor I met called Bubbles.
Dr. Tanya.
Yes.
Destin.
Yes.
Bubbles, yeah.
And I'm sure
Bubbles is a wonderful lady.
Yes.
Gives me a lot of pressure every now and then, but...
Well, quite right.
Oh no, Bubbles, you have somebody supporting you.
Yes, I do. And I think that people like her, they could put her on the list and go to her, and she will listen because she's holistic, and she will take into account not only the physical but the mental as well. That's what we have to tie up. If you think about, actually, I still have a thing about working out. If you imagine you're working on the treadmill and you're running, but you have a screen in front of you showing the news and there's maybe people dying. That's completely counterproductive because this is connected to this. You just have to keep being aware of that, and all these wonderful people like the police force, the teachers, the nurses, the doctors, they will reinforce this, and that's what the children need to know, what the adults need to know, that there are lots of people around to help. And I don't know what's happening here, but in the UK, there's a lot of volunteers are emerging, and there's lots of good things going on, like between neighbours are helping each other and that sort of thing. And of course the emissions are lower with the fish are coming back, and the birds are coming back, and so there's all those things to concentrate on. But don't with parents and children.
Who's pushing that message?
We all got to do it. We have to do it, and once it's not enough, we've got to keep going over and over.
That's what I think
again.
is lacking.
Yes.
That you go on any Facebook page, on any news article. I mean, over the last 10 days, for example, so much good information has come out
Yeah.
about the vaccines.
Yes.
Nobody's talking about that.
Well, you're doing it.
Well, I try,
You
but
have to-
I'm just a little sardine in an ocean of whales.
Well, but the thing is that people need to know the vaccine has gone through a really rigorous process. And then the argument is, because I've been asking people why don't they believe it? And they're saying, well, the other vaccines took 12 years.
Yeah. Now, I've had Dr. King and other doctors
right.
come on this show
Yes.
to explain why a vaccine will no longer take 12 years, because it's an ongoing process.
Yes, and they put everything into this. It's everybody on hand. You say you're a little sardine, but there are so many sardines and there are so many scientists. This is causing a bit of the problem with the government, and it's not their fault because they don't know who to listen to. They have so many scientists to listen to. By the way, I think your Prime Minister's fantastic. I just thought I'd throw that in because I was here last February, March, and he went into action so quickly. And he really kept it down because in the UK, you can imagine it's much, much higher. And we have people at home and they don't have the beach, they don't have the sun, and they might be on the 50th floor. They have no garden. And they have not been out of the house for 1 year. So another thing to say to people here is just really, really think about those wonderful things you can be grateful for, like the beach. You know, you can do things outside and this kind of thing. So there are lots of good things to be said, but they need to be said again and again. Mm-hmm. So when the children or the parents come in from work, either or, do not go from one thing to another to another to another. There's two really important things. One is have breaks. If you think about university, people have breaks every hour and a half. There's a reason for that. You will combust. If you go from work, get your child from school, and then the child comes home and does work, and you're doing one thing to another, you will combust. You have to schedule in, and I know people say it's impossible, difficult, but I'll tell you, you can. You must have these breaks to keep your sanity and your anxiety low. It doesn't have to be for an hour. It can be walk round the block. It can be go to the loo. It can be have a glass of water. But these breaks are so important, and quiet time, and water is so important as well, to keep up people's energy, because they're going from one thing to another, and it will give you energy, it will give you all sorts of things. I can't stress enough how it's a simple thing, but it really, really does help. So just making lists of these things, and just as much as you can, just repeating them. And you can ask the police, you can ask the doctors, put posters up. Well, I don't know. But also helping people helps people. If they help someone else, they feel better. It gives a release to them as well.
Karen, thanks a million, Karen. I do appreciate you taking the time off to be here. And I want to wish you safe travels tomorrow. And
Thank you.
The next time you're here, certainly give me a shout so we can do this again.
Yes. Well, I'm here a month or two a year.
Okay,
so
no problem. So next time you're here, you know how to get in touch with me. Just give me a shout.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot to Karen Mann, psychotherapist, and clearly those of you who listen, it is clear that Karen knows her business. So